For 20 years, I believed I was a father. Every birthday, every baseball game, every sleepless night with him in my arms. I thought I was doing what any real man would do for his son. But I was wrong. Because the boy I loved, the one who called me dad for 2 decades, was never mine. I still remember the moment the truth hit me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a scream or a fight. It was silent, like the world had suddenly stopped breathing. I held the DNA report in my hand, and I read the words over and over again, hoping they would change. They didn't. Probability of paternity, 0%. In that single line, 20 years of my life, my love, my pride, my sacrifices, all turned into a lie. And the woman who made me believe that lie was standing in the next room, humming to herself as if she hadn't just destroyed my entire world. I didn't shout. I didn't confront her, not yet. Because I realized something in that moment. If she could lie to me for 20 years, then I could make her pay without saying a single word. And I did. When I first met Emily, she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was light, soft, graceful, confident in a way that made every other woman disappear when she walked into a room. I was 28. Focused, ambitious, a little too proud of the life I'd built from nothing. She was 24. Beautiful, kind. The kind of woman you imagine building a future with. We met at a friend's engagement party. She spilled wine on my jacket, laughed nervously, and apologized half a dozen times. I told her it was fine, but truth is, from that moment, I didn't want the night to end. We started dating soon after. Late-night walks, quiet dinners, shared dreams about family, stability, and love. She said she wanted a simple life. She said I made her feel safe. And I believed her. Within a year, I proposed. I remember her tears as she said yes. How she wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You'll never regret this." For a long time, I didn't. Our wedding was small, but perfect. Just family and close friends. When she walked down the aisle in that white dress, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. We bought a modest house, a little fixer-upper on the edge of town. We spent weekends painting walls, assembling furniture, arguing playfully about colors. Life was simple, peaceful. 2 years later, she told me she was pregnant. I still remember that morning, her trembling hands holding the test, tears running down her face as she said, "We're going to be parents." I held her, feeling something I'd never felt before, purpose. From that day on, everything I did was for them, for my family. I worked longer hours, took on side projects, missed sleep, missed meals, but I didn't care. When our son, my son, was born, I thought my world had finally found its meaning. He had her eyes, her smile, but I told myself there was a hint of me in there too. The nurse placed him in my arms, and I swore I'd protect him until my last breath. We named him Ethan, and for 20 years, he was my pride, my legacy. I coached his little league team. I helped him with his first science project. I was there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every victory. And through it all, Emily was by my side, smiling, laughing, living like she carried no weight of guilt on her shoulders. If you'd asked anyone, they would have said we had the perfect marriage. And for a long time, even I believed it. But perfection is fragile. And lies, they have a way of rotting the foundation from beneath, long before the cracks reach the surface. The first time I noticed something was off, Ethan was 15. We were at a family barbecue. My brother had brought his kids, 2 boys, both spitting images of him. Same jawline, same eyes, same way they laughed. Someone made a joke about how genetics never lie. Everyone laughed. So did I. But for some reason, my eyes wandered to Ethan. He didn't look like me, not even a little. At first, I brushed it off. He had his mother's features. That's what I told myself. Still, that thought, that tiny whisper of doubt, started to grow roots. A few weeks later, we went through old photos. I noticed something strange. His baby pictures, his hair was lighter. Not blonde, just lighter. I asked Emily about it. She smiled and said, "Sunlight, remember? You used to take him out every morning." I smiled back. But deep down, something didn't sit right. Then came the nights. Emily started staying up late, scrolling through her phone. If I walked into the room, she'd tilt the screen away, casual, but deliberate. Once, I saw her delete a message as soon as I approached. I asked, "Who's that?" She said, "Just a coworker. He's going through a divorce. I'm helping him out." Her voice was calm. Too calm. I nodded, but I didn't believe her. The unease kept building. Small things. Subtle things. A photo tucked in a drawer that I didn't recognize. Her and a man I'd never met, smiling together, long before Ethan was born. Old letters in a box labeled college stuff. One signed with a name I didn't know. Mark. I asked her once, jokingly, "Who's Mark?" She froze. Just for a second. Then laughed it off. "Oh, that's just an old friend from college. You're jealous of a ghost now." I smiled. She laughed again. But my mind didn't. One night, when she was asleep, I went through her old photo albums. There he was again, that same man, Mark. And something about his face, something about his eyes reminded me of Ethan. It hit me hard, but I didn't let myself believe it. Not yet. The next week, Ethan needed a blood test for a routine checkup. I went with him. Afterward, I asked the nurse if I could get a copy of the results, said I was handling insurance paperwork. When I compared them to mine a few days later, something didn't match. Our blood types were incompatible. That was the first real crack in the illusion. I told myself I needed proof. Not guesses. Not suspicions. Proof that couldn't be denied. So, a few days later, I ordered a DNA test. 2 kits. One for me, one for Ethan. I told him it was for a fun ancestry thing, just to see where our roots came from. He laughed and agreed. 2 weeks later, the envelope arrived. I remember sitting at the kitchen table that night. Emily was in the shower. Ethan was asleep. It was quiet, too quiet. My hands were shaking as I opened it. And when I saw the results, my world collapsed. Paternity, 0%. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the paper, as the clock ticked past midnight. For 20 years, I had lived a lie, and she was the one who fed it to me every single day. I sat in that kitchen for hours, staring at the DNA report. The numbers blurred, but the truth didn't. There was no mistake, no misprint, no second chance. The boy I'd raised, the one I loved more than my own life, wasn't mine. And the woman I trusted, the one I vowed to spend my life with, had built our marriage on a lie. When I finally looked up, the sun was already rising. Emily walked in, still half asleep, her hair messy, her face calm, like she hadn't just ruined 20 years of my life. She smiled faintly. "You're up early." I held up the envelope. "Do you know what this is?" She froze. The color drained from her face. I watched the truth surface in her eyes before I said another word. "Don't," she whispered. "Please." I cut her off. "How long?" She didn't answer. Her lips trembled. I asked again, slower this time. "How long have you known?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Since the beginning." That was all it took. I leaned back in the chair, staring at her like I was seeing her for the first time. "The beginning," I repeated. She nodded, small, terrified. I should have shouted. Thrown something. Broken something. But I didn't. Instead, I just went quiet. Because when a lie lasts that long, it doesn't deserve noise. It deserves silence. She started talking, trying to fill the space between us with excuses. It was before we got serious. "I didn't know how to tell you. Mark and I had a fight, and then I found out I was pregnant. I thought he didn't care." Her voice cracked. "You were so happy when you thought he was yours. I didn't want to ruin that." I stared at her, expressionless. "You didn't want to ruin my happiness," I said quietly. "So you decided to live off my love, my money, my time, for 20 years. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry." I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "Sorry? You let me raise another man's son. You watched me call him my son every single day, knowing it was a lie." She tried to step closer. I stepped back. "I loved you, Emily," I said. "And you let me waste half my life loving a ghost." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing, but I felt nothing. The part of me that cared for her had died the moment I opened that envelope. Then she said something that froze me completely. "I didn't think you'd ever find out." That's when I realized she hadn't just lied. She had counted on me never learning the truth. It wasn't guilt that kept her silent. It was comfort. She was comfortable living a lie, as long as it benefited her. And that's when I decided what I'd do next. I didn't want revenge through violence or rage. I wanted something colder. I wanted her to live through the same helplessness she gave me, but awake, aware, and powerless. So I wiped my tears, stood up, and said, "Don't worry, Emily. I won't tell anyone. Not yet." She looked confused. "What do you mean?" I walked past her, calm, emotionless. "I just want to see how much more of my life you can ruin before I take it all back." That was the last thing I said to her that morning. But what came next? That was when her world began to crumble, piece by piece, exactly like mine once did. I sat with the DNA report folded like a small, sharp blade in my pocket and watched my life move around me. The routines, the laughter, the way Emily poured coffee like nothing had changed. That morning, I told myself I would not act on impulse. I would not let anger make me reckless. She had used my love as currency for 20 years. I would take back what she spent. First, I did nothing dramatic. I collected facts. I opened a new bank account in my name alone. Quietly, I set up a meeting with a lawyer, one who had a reputation for patience and precision. I didn't want fireworks. I wanted permanence. Document everything, he told me. We build a file. We do it by the book. I nodded. I like lists. Step 1. Secure evidence. I gathered every paper that proved my contributions. Mortgage payments. College tuition receipts. The signed forms for Ethan's school activities. Receipts for every car repair and every family vacation I had paid for. I photocopied them. I stored them in 3 places. I also copied messages, the ones Emily thought she deleted. I hired a forensic specialist to recover texts from backups and old phones. The specialist found more than I'd expected. Names, dates, a pattern, photographs of Emily with Mark, months before she told me she was pregnant. Proof stacked like concrete. Step 2. Financial separation without spectacle. I instructed my lawyer to prepare immediate protective measures. Not to humiliate her publicly, but to make the lie have real consequences. We filed for temporary separation of assets, a restraining of joint account withdrawals until the divorce papers. Insurance beneficiaries were reviewed. Where I was listed alone, I stayed. Where we were joint, I moved quickly to protect what I had built. I set up payments for Ethan's needs that went through legal channels. No public scenes. No shouting in front of the boy. I wanted him stable. I wanted the truth to hurt Emily, not him. Step 3. Prepare the exposure. I could have walked into a courtroom and screamed the truth. I could have posted everything online and watched her fall. But I didn't. I wanted control. So I scheduled a private meeting with her parents. I printed copies of the DNA results and the photos recovered. I walked into their house like a man who already knew the outcome. Her mother's face went white. Her father asked questions that had no answers. I let them talk. I let them process. If Emily hoped her family would shield her, that illusion was gone. Step 4. The public sting. Precise, surgical. I rented a small hall for Ethan's high school awards night. Not to create drama, but because I knew many of our friends would be there. People who had attended our weddings, christenings, birthdays. People who believed in our family image. A week before the event, I sat Emily down and handed her divorce papers. I watched the color drain from her. She begged. She pleaded. She offered explanations. I signed nothing. I listened. I let her squirm. Why are you doing this in private? She asked. Why hurt him? I answered quietly. I'm protecting him from lies. And I'm giving you time to decide what you'll tell others. She laughed once, a wet, desperate sound. You can't do this. I already did, I said. And there's more. On the night of the awards, I wore a dark suit. Ethan walked up to receive his certificate. I sat in the front row. Emily sat to my left, pale and small. I had the DNA report in my pocket. I had the copies ready, legally notarized, should anyone demand proof. When Ethan's name was called for a special recognition, I stood. The room applauded. I smiled. For him. For truth. For the life I'd given him, honest now or not at all. After the ceremony, I took the stage. Not to accuse. Not to yell. To read a statement. Calm. Precise. Short. Thank you for coming tonight, I began. I want to be clear about one thing. I love Ethan. I always have. I raised him with every honest breath I had. I will continue to support him, but I will not continue to live a lie. I handed the statement to the event organizer and asked that it be included in the program. People read it. Faces changed. Whispers started. Emily's hands trembled. She looked at me like I had become someone she no longer recognized. Step 5. Permanent consequences. Within days, the school's administration had copies of the DNA report. They contacted social services to ensure Ethan's welfare. Our friends called to ask questions. The truth spread, not as a shout, but as a series of quiet confirmations. Each call, each message, tightened the net around the life Emily had fabricated. I let the facts speak. No theatrics. No revenge porn. No threats. Just documents. Lawyers. Reality. Step 6. Reclaim what was mine. The divorce proceedings were efficient. I asked for an equitable division of assets based on the 20 years of contributions I had documented. I asked for custody terms that protected Ethan's emotional health and ensured access to a stable home life. I did not seek to shame Ethan. I sought to shield him. I also sought accountability. Not vengeance for its own sake, but a bill for the life I'd paid for in loyalty and trust. Emily's options narrowed. Her finances were restructured. She lost privileges she had once considered permanent. Access to our joint credit lines, discretionary spending, and, eventually, the family home. All of it was lawful. All of it was cold. All of it hurt her in ways that mirrored the damage she had done to me. She tried to bargain. "Please," she said once, in a voice that broke into smaller pieces with every word. "I can explain." "I can. You already did," I told her. "You explained away 20 years of my life." Her arguments dissolved into silence. There were moments I almost felt mercy. When Ethan hugged me at night and asked if we would be okay, I held him until he stopped trembling. I reminded myself that the boy deserved stability, not spectacle. I was careful to separate the child from the calculus of punishment. That made what I did purer. That made it right. In the end, Emily's world narrowed until she was forced to reckon with the consequences. Not with a scream, but with the steady, irreversible retraction of the life she had borrowed. Her friends turned away. Her parents avoided answering calls. Her comforts disappeared one by one. Revenge, I learned, is not always fury. Sometimes it's the cold application of truth, administered with patience and law. Sometimes it's the careful unmaking of a house built on lies, slide by slide, until there is nothing left to stand on. When the final papers were signed, the house sold, and the accounts separated, I folded the DNA report and placed it in a drawer. I did not burn it. I did not keep it out like a trophy. I placed it away, an instrument that had broken my life open and then closed it again. I had my son's future to protect. I had my dignity returned in small, legal increments. The victory was not loud. It was precise. It was absolute. And I walked away with something she could not steal anymore. The certainty that the truth, when used correctly, can be the coldest, most thorough kind of justice. Months passed. The house sold. The settlement cleared. Emily moved into a small apartment across town. I never visited. Ethan chose to stay with me. He still called me Dad. I never corrected him. Not once. He was innocent. He didn't ask to be born into a lie. I helped him apply to college, taught him how to balance a checkbook, how to drive, how to start over without bitterness. He didn't need to know every detail about his mother. He just needed to see what truth looks like when a man refuses to break. One night, years later, Emily sent me a message. It said only 4 words. "Do you hate me?" I read it twice. Then I deleted it. No reply. There was nothing left to say to someone who had already buried herself in her own lies. Now, sometimes, I look at old photos, the vacations, the birthdays, the smiles that never meant what I thought they did. They don't hurt anymore. They just remind me how dangerous love can be when it's blind. I lost 20 years to a lie, but I gained the rest of my life in truth. Final line, cold, dramatic close. She took my past, but I took her future. And that's a trait I can live with.